has officially broken loose. This whole DHS debacle has gone to a level I couldn't even have imagined. There are now calls for Kristi Noem to resign. And Kristi Noem is pointing her finger at Donald Trump and Stephen Miller, throwing them under the bus. Kristi Noem made a decision that she is not going to go down alone. And that is because a lot of people were pointing fingers at her because she is Homeland Security. That's her role. So now she's throwing them under the bus. I'm going to get into what this really means for Stephen Miller and what's this really all about, because we're going to do a mini deep dive into him so that you can see what his ulterior motive really is. It's not just about immigration. Stephen Miller has been problematic going all the way back to when he was in high school. So we're going to go through all of that, fam. But it started here with Tom Tillis. Tom Tillis, apparently, I don't know, maybe he had a drink or two before they asked him this question. But Tom Tillis, who is Republican, really went after Kristi Noem here. Listen to this.
But then think that we can move on before this has been adjudicated.
Senator, do you have confidence in Secretary Noem?
None at all. No, she's. I've tried to maintain confidence, but look, I've done and we'll be sharing this information. We've done a Trump 1, Trump 2 comparison of disaster relief. There's no comparison whatsoever. Trump 1 was right on with disaster recovery. You think about Matthew and Florence, and this one, she's not even handling the other part of her job. I mean, at one point she thought FEMA should be eliminated. To give you an idea of how incompetent I think she is, she actually thought FEMA should be eliminated. And when she had a FEMA director said he didn't think that was a good idea, she fired him within 24 hours. Now she understands that that is an important part of her job. These are like amateurish assistant manager sort of thought processes going into somebody who's a secretary in a cabinet level position. It's unacceptable.
Does she need to?
So he is saying that Kristi Noem made amateur level decisions here. Oh my God. Everyone's pointing fingers. It's your fault. It's your fault. You're going under the bus. You're going under the bus. Everybody is going under the bus.
Step down. Does she need to?
Stephen Miller is in the same boat. This guy, after doing the stupid comments he made about Greenland getting the president in a difficult circumstance, is one of the people that came out publicly and said that this guy was a terrorist before he had even talked with anybody on the ground. And that's clearly not the case now. So, I mean, it's just, I mean, Stephen Miller never fails to live up to my expectations of incompetence.
Why do you think he should be fired?
I'm going to leave that up to the president. I can tell you, if I were president, neither one of them would be in Washington right now.
But do you think Noem should step down?
I think Noem needs to decide what, I think if Noem looks at her body of work, I could not be. If I were in her position, I can't think of any point of pride over the last year. She's got to make her own decision, or the president does. But she has taken this administration into the ground on an issue that we should own. We should own the issue of border security and immigration, but they have destroyed that for Republicans. Something that got the president elected, they have destroyed it through their incompetence.
Well, tell us how you really feel there. So it all started with that. And now there are calls for Kristi Noem to resign. And so as you'll see here, this is what's going around the interwebs. Kristi Noem is increasingly under fire from Congress and is now blaming Trump and Stephen Miller for her actions. And here it is here. Everything I've done at the direction of the president and Stephen. This is what she apparently said to Axios. So do you see how they're throwing? She's like, get that. She's like, you're not just going to wave your finger at me. I did what they told me to do. And that brings me to Stephen. Stephen right now, this is the big one. He has been iced out of Trump's DHS cleanup. I swear to gosh, this is just too hilarious. Stephen Miller was reportedly shut out of a closed-door White House meeting on Monday after a second U.S. citizen was killed by a federal agent in Minnesota. This triggered a national outcry over federal immigration enforcement. The 2-hour meeting that was held at the request of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem came amid growing backlash against the Trump officials seen as responsible for the chaos. That includes Noem, Miller, and Border Patrol Commander Gregory Bovino. Right? So there they all are there. Noem and her de facto chief of staff and alleged lover, Corey, I swear to God, this is a soap opera, Lewandowski, met with Trump 79 amid mounting calls for her resignation after she falsely labeled an ICU nurse, Alex Preddy, a domestic terrorist. So now everybody's pointing fingers, ladies and gentlemen. Miller, who has reportedly turned against Kristi Noem and blamed her for the fallout in Minnesota, was absent from the meeting, a move that marks a stunning reversal for the White House as it seeks to distance itself from the zero tolerance immigration policies he helped craft. So, yeah, this is a disaster, guys. Like, this is embarrassing, right? And it made me look a little deeper at Stephen Miller. And I think you're going to want to see this. Who is Stephen Miller? Where did Stephen Miller come from? What has been his ultimate agenda, right? Because it's not just about immigration. So we're going to do a little mini dive into who he actually is. Let's go ahead and bring this up here. Let's start from early childhood, right? So he grew up in an affluent neighborhood in Santa Monica, California. His grandparents, they were part of the Russian pogroms, so they escaped the Russian pogroms and the Holocaust. His mom went to Columbia University. Here we go, another one with Columbia University. Remember the height of those encampments? And let's get into this part here about the high school, because see, this didn't come out of nowhere. In 1999, he began attending Santa Monica High School. Miller opposed his high school's chapter of the Chicano student movement. If you highlight over here, it says MECHA, MECA, is a U.S.-based organization that seeks to promote Chicano unity and empowerment through political action. So this goes back to high school, and was described by the chapter founder as having taunted immigrants. He reportedly insisted to other students and teachers that they speak English. Then we fast forward to Larry Elder. Of course, it was Larry Elder who really gave him recognition and gave him some type of prominence, right? He called in to Larry Elder's talk show. He appeared there after the September 11 attacks, right? So it really is, if you're not happy, if you despise Stephen Miller and you're tired of him and his loony ass wife, you really got to point your finger at Larry Elder. Larry Elder was the one who put Stephen Miller on the map. Let's go on more here. Now, let's fast forward to college, because we're making a case here, right? David Horowitz, conservative writer David Horowitz, he heard Stephen Miller on Larry Elder's show. And he started then to develop a long-term relationship with Stephen Miller, who invited him to speak at his high school. I'll get into who David Horowitz is in just a second. Because when we get to Duke, Miller began attending Duke University in 2003 to study political science. Get this. In 2004, he became outraged at Duke's decision to schedule a Palestine Solidarity Movement conference. Miller found the university's chapter of Horowitz Students for Academic Freedom and rallied students to oppose the conference. So once he started that relationship with David Horowitz, they decided to start this organization at Duke University, basically as a way at first to push back on the Palestine Solidarity Movement. So this goes all the way back for Stephen Miller. He's always been this way. Now, let me go on more so you can see where a lot of this is coming from. We go here. The following year, he was the author of a column in the Duke Chronicle, Duke's student paper titled Miller Time. Miller continued to critique multiculturalism. You see this? His combative debate strategy, particularly in his column, earned Miller a reputation for pugnancy. Miller invited Horowitz to speak at Duke, who in turn named Miller to lead the Terrorism Awareness Project. This was an initiative that conflated Muslims and Arabs with terrorists. Miller appeared on Fox and Friends starting in 1998 to promote it. This is very important for people to see. One of the reasons why Stephen Miller is so gung-ho about the ICE efforts, it really goes back to Islam. He's anti-Muslim. He goes as far as to say that all Muslims and Arabs are terrorists. That's who Stephen Miller is. He has issue with multiculturalism, right? So when you have people, and this is something Ben Shapiro needs to acknowledge, but he won't. When you have people like Stephen Miller become a part of your movement who are just blatantly racist, and then you want to cry like a baby, or you want people to feel pity or sympathy for you after what happened on October 7th, well, it's people like Ben Shapiro and the rest of them that opened the door and allowed that Stephen Miller stuff to come in. Do you understand what I'm saying? You can't have it both ways. You can't have it where you sit up here and you say, well, we have to be nice to everybody, but we shouldn't focus on identity. But then at the same time, you focusing on identity, but you don't want people to focus on other identities. And then you have this guy, Stephen Miller, who doesn't want any multiculturalism, basically just wants white nationalism, but also at the same time wants you to consider him to still be a minority because he is ethnically Jewish. This don't make no damn sense. So you can't have it both ways. So you point your fingers at people like him. And like I said, Ben Shapiro will never admit it, but this is part of the problem. Let's fast forward here. So after 9/11, he started going on Nancy Grace, all these types of things. So again, he was able to use 9/11 as support for, well, they're all terrorists. They're all evil people, you know, and here we go. And that's how we got here. And now let me fast forward a little bit more here. 2016, this is when he starts to get involved with the Trump campaign. He had already started Breitbart News. And I think I have all those ones there. Yeah. So these are the ones. Oh, the immigration moves. So Miller was an advocate for Trump's administration's family separation policy. In April, he was instrumental to Trump's decision to intensify enforcement of the policy. So this goes, again, way back. We go on here. Goes into the wall, all this types of stuff. But the part that's really important for people to grasp from this is that Stephen Miller is one of the people who feels as though Islam is a problem and Muslims are a problem and Arabs are a problem, right? And he was able to do this with the help of David Horowitz. Now, who was David Horowitz? Let's go ahead and get into him. He died in 2025. That was last year. This is where it gets really crazy when you find out his background. Okay. So David Horowitz from New York. He was another one whose family members fled Russia during the pogroms. So similar to Stephen Miller. But listen to this. He actually started out as a Marxist. He identified as a Marxist intellectual. I kid you not. I can't even make this up. That changed as time went on. Let me go to this part here. When he was in London, Horowitz became a close friend of Deutscher and wrote a biography of him. Horowitz wrote The Free World Colossus, a critique of American foreign policy in the Cold War. This is who he used to be. Okay. Here's the crazy part. I got to highlight this one for you guys. Because this guy, David Horowitz, who aligned himself with the supremacist Stephen Miller, who started that organization, which, by the way, is deemed by the Southern Law Poverty Center, is deemed as a hateful organization. This same guy, before he got mixed up with Stephen Miller, he used to work with Huey P. Newton in the Black Panther Party. During the early 1970s, Horowitz developed a close relationship with Huey P. Newton, founder of the Black Panther Party. Horowitz later portrayed Newton as equal part gangster, terrorist, intellectual, and media celebrity. As part of their work together, Horowitz helped raise money for and assisted the Panthers with the running of a school for poor children in Oakland. So let me pause here for a second. This is how infiltration happens. Because there's no way. So again, this is why sometimes instead of taking money from said person, because they got a lot of money, you better off just remaining grassroots and doing your own thing. Because what I kind of look at, this guy could have been infiltrator, could have been spying. You never know. There were multiple infiltrators in the Black Panther Party. We know this if you know the story about Fred Hampton. Now check this part out. This is the part that's really sneaky and scary. He recommended that Huey P. Newton hire Betty Van Patter as bookkeeper. She was then working for Ramparts. In December of 1974, Van Patter's battered, decomposed body was found on a beach in San Francisco Bay. She had been murdered. It is widely believed that the Panthers were responsible for her murder, a belief also held by Horowitz. Betty Van Patter, let me just show you who she is first. This was Betty Van Patter. She was a bookkeeper for the Black Panther Party, although she herself was white. Now, let's think about this for a second. Of all the people that David Horowitz could have recommended to be the bookkeeper for the Black Panther Party, Black Panther Party did not have people of other races as a part of the Black Panther Party. There were the Young Patriots, there were the Young Lords, and they worked together in coalition that was called the Rainbow Coalition, but they did not join the Black Panther Party. But David Horowitz says, this is the person that should be your bookkeeper. Why? And then she winds up dead. Till this day, that case has not been solved. And David Horowitz believed that the Black Panthers killed her. This is important because after that death, everything changes for David Horowitz. Let's go in here. Rightward evolution. Following this period, Horowitz rejected Marx and socialism, but kept quiet about his changing politics for nearly a decade. In 1985, Horowitz and Collier, who also became a political conservative, wrote an article, the Washington Post magazine, titled Lefties for Reagan. So he got on that Reagan kick there for just a second. It goes on to say here, I want to get a little bit closer to the Freedom Center. In 1998, Horowitz and Peter Collier founded the David Horowitz Freedom Center. Politico states that Horowitz activities and the DHFC are funded in part by Aubrey and Joyce Chernick and ding, 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 the Bradley Foundation. Now, we talked about them during the story about PragerU. You see the same names coming up? David Horowitz was also connected to TPUSA. Like, all these people are connected. They just swim in different circles, right? Horowitz was the editor of the center's website, Front Page Magazine. It had been described by scholars and writers as right-wing, far-right, and Islamophobic and anti-Islam. Now, here's another part that's important. David Horowitz mentored Charlie Kirk. He was another one of the mentors that Charlie Kirk had. In fact, when he died, Charlie Kirk posted this: "Rest in peace to my friend and mentor, David Horowitz, who has just passed away, a fearless truth teller. David was a titan in the battle of ideas and the war for Western civilization." We're not going to read all of this, but even Charlie Kirk mentioned it here, that he grew up on the hard left and remained a committed Marxist into his 30s, and then he changed. What he does not say here is that that change happened after the death of Betty, who's working with the Black Panthers. And there's David Horowitz right there. All these people roll together. So David Horowitz and Stephen Miller got together, started that organization in college. This whole anti-Islam thing goes way, way back. And I really do believe Stephen Miller's crusade against the migrants in Minneapolis, it's not just about, well, people came here illegally. It's also a way for him to rid out Islam. Because notice what we pointed out before, they're going into certain communities. I don't see them trying to deport anybody who is white who came here illegally. And some people say, well, that's not the case. Yes, it is the case. There are a number of people, and I say this, having worked at the university, having worked with large international population, there are a number of people who come into the country on a student visa or any other kind of visa, and they overstay the visa, and they are also in that same position. But you don't see them going after them. That tells you everything. The TPUSA connection, David Horowitz, of course, mentor to Charlie Kirk, another one. And then Stephen Miller, let's not forget what he said at Charlie Kirk's memorial that tells you everything about who this guy really is.
Those trying to foment hatred against us, what do you have? You have nothing. You are nothing. You are wickedness, you are jealousy, you are envy, you are hatred. You are nothing. You can build nothing. You can produce nothing. You can create nothing. We are the ones who build. We are the ones who create. We are the ones who lift up humanity. You thought you could kill Charlie Kirk? You have made him immortal. You have immortalized Charlie Kirk. And now millions will carry on his legacy. And we will devote the rest of our lives to finishing the causes for which Charlie gave his last measure of devotion.
So Stephen Miller was really talking about himself. He's the one that has all that hatred inside of him. He's the one that doesn't want peace. He's the one that, and for years, this is going all the way back to high school. This is an unhappy dude who probably, for the most part, didn't like himself, so he started hating everybody else. That is who Stephen Miller is. And it doesn't matter that Kash Patel can go on a podcast, go on his wife's podcast and sit down. And Kash Patel is someone that Stephen Miller and his wife can point at, and they can say, see, we got Kash Patel. We got Nicki Minaj. So this goes far back for Stephen Miller. And he finally got the opportunity to try to do what he's been wanting to do for a long time. But now it looks like even he's being called out. So we'll have to pay attention to see if he also is removed. They're probably going to remove Kristi Noem, but we'll have to wait and see if he gets removed as well. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.